Hello, Eastside Youth. Hopefully, you guys are doing well today. This is kind of just a recap of kind of what we talked about Sunday evening. We started our series on the book of Ruth. We're going to be going over the book of Ruth the next 4 weeks. It's got 4 chapters, so it works out real nice. Um, but yeah, if you were not there or if you haven't seen, and I'll send these out too as we get closer as reminders. But on Saturday, the 22nd, we're going to be doing a day hike up to I think we're going Silver Falls, but yeah, we'll be leaving the church around I believe 10. Should be back um, in time for dinner, but we'll encourage you guys to pack a lunch to eat there. And so that's Saturday the 22nd, and then kind of our end of the year, even though it's not the end of the calendar year, our end of the youth group year. Um, Kind of get together celebration thing is on the 30th, and we're going to be heading out to the coast for a beach day. So we're going to do uh, go to church Sunday the 30th, and then after church we'll be loading up to when the bus gets back from dropping folks off that it transports at the end of church. We'll be loading stuff onto the bus and heading out to the beach for some games and some food together and worship and lesson and spend some time together out at the coast. And then we'll be back, should be back by 7. So not too late. It is a youth group night. But yeah, looking forward to those two things for the month of August. And then I'll get you guys more information on September as it gets close. And then after September, as you guys well know, the end of the year is here before we know it. So it's going to move fast here coming up pretty quick. I just wanted to give, if you weren't able to be there Sunday, or if you just wanted like a quick recap of what we talked about Ruth chapter 1, and we looked at the idea of loyalty. So I'm not going to read through all that we read Sunday evening, but what you got to know is Ruth takes place in the time of the judges. So in the book of Judges, um, there was a system where the people would walk away or quit following the Lord in the way that they should, and then God would raise up a judge, and the judge was a person that kind of acted not as like a judge, hammer gavel type thing, but it was more of like this person who either militarily or societally won a victory for the people of Israel and helped them get back on track with their God, or at least they were supposed to. Some of the judges were not as good as others. And so Ruth takes place in the time of the judges, and the beginning of the book says, in the days of the judges, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem of Judah leaves the land and goes to Moab. And one of the things we talked about is Bethlehem means house of bread. So the man from the house of bread runs out of bread and he goes to the land of Moab. And before we got into it, I had there's a couple verses. The first was a reminder is God's words to Abraham way back in Genesis, where he says, all the nations of the world will be blessed through this offspring that's going to come from you. And looking back through history, we can understand that that is fulfilled in Jesus. But then in Deuteronomy, we're told that Ammonites and Moabites are not going to have a place in the house of the Lord. Um, and so those two things kind of stand, and it's like, well, what's going on here? So this guy from Israel leaves and he goes to Moab, which was one of the places that they really weren't supposed to associate with much. And he heads out and he goes there. And him and his 2 sons and his wife, they go over there, and then he dies. So the husband dies. And then his 2 sons marry Moabite women, which was also kind of a no-no in the Israelite culture and society. And so they marry these Moabite women, one of whom is Ruth. Ruth is a Moabite girl, and then these 2 sons die. And so now we have this Israelite woman who went to Moab with her husband and her 2 Moabite daughters-in-law. And they find out that the famine is over, and Naomi decides that she's the wife of the man who went to Moab. She decides that she's going home back to Israel. And when she says that, um, Ruth and her other sister Orpah, they decide, well, we're gonna go back with you. And then Naomi proceeds to be like, guys, there's nothing for you there. Like, I have no more sons. I'm not gonna have any more kids. I'm old. And if you go, like, you will probably not find anyone to marry, and you'll probably die alone. That's essentially what Naomi tells her daughters-in-law. And Orpah decides, yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to go back and be with my people. But that Ruth clung to her. So Ruth has decided that she is going to go with Naomi. And then Naomi, instead of saying, okay, thank you, Ruth, instead of doing that, Naomi says, see, your sister in law's gone back to her people and to her gods. Return with her. And Ruth said, do not urge me to leave or return from following you. For where I go, where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I'll die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do so to me and more also, if anything but death parts me from you. So Ruth commits her loyalty to Naomi and says, no, I'm going with you. Um, and where you go, I go. Where you stay, I'll stay. And your God is going to be my God. And we talked about how Ruth didn't really have anything to gain from going with Naomi. Like, she's going to be a foreigner. She's going to be a foreigner that they really weren't supposed to associate with much. She's a widow. Um, Her husband has passed away. She's leaving her family behind in Moab. She's leaving her religion, her gods that are back in Moab. She's literally leaving everything behind to be with Naomi. And one of the cool things here is the only thing that Ruth really has to gain is when she says, your God will be my God. That is what Ruth has there. She doesn't know who this God is. She doesn't know the God of Israel. Um, Outside of having interacted with this Israelite family that she married into. And while she was a part of that family, it would seem that maybe she had come into contact with something of the God of Israel that she said, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of God's people. And so that is what causes her to go back with Naomi. She's loyal to Naomi, and really all she has to gain is maybe a relationship with this God of a different people that she does not know. Um, and again, I'm trying to give you guys a sense because it's very easy for us to look back as Christians or as people nowadays and look at like, no, I mean, it's God, you're safe bet. But that was not how it probably was not that way for Ruth. She was probably, this was an act of faith. She responded in faith and said, no, I want to be a part of the people of God. Um, in the face of, again, the book of Deuteronomy saying, hey, maybe this is not for Moabites, or maybe at the time they understood, like, no, they're not a part of the people of God. We're going to find out more about that as Ruth goes on. But so anyway, Ruth goes back, and then Naomi comes into town, and the people of Bethlehem are like, holy cow, it's Naomi, and a random Moabite girl, and where's her husband and her kids? Um, and Naomi is just like, no, my life is bitter. God has taken everything away from me. All he has brought is calamity on me. And yet then at the end of chapter 1, it says, Naomi returned and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, and they returned from the country of Moab. They came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. So, we have Naomi who, like, we talked about, and I've said it before, like, Israel is supposed to be like this big road sign of a people that when the nations of the world interacted with them, they were to see Israel and they were to go, whatever God is the God of Israel is the God I want to be my God, because what God is doing for them is crazy and it's awesome and it's good, and I want to be a part of the people of God. That was the mission for the people of Israel, to be this like road sign in the world at that time, to say our God is greater, he is different, he is good, and he loves you. And Ruth saw that and she wanted to go be a part of that, but Naomi here is doing the opposite. She's saying, Ruth, go home. Everything is awful. I I lost everything over there, except for you got a new daughter-in-law who's pretty committed to you. And the other thing that this loyalty did that we talked about is in the book of Judges. One of the things that is just so on the nose is how unloyal the people of Israel are. Time and again, they get on this cycle where they don't do what God desired, they fall away, they go into sin, and then God hands them over into that sin. And that stands directly in the face of this Moabite girl who shows great loyalty to a God she doesn't know, and a mother-in-law who does not even want her to come back with her. And it's almost like the author of this is saying, okay, Israel, we've sent Israelite judge after Israelite judge, and we've tried this over and over. Now let's try a Moabite girl to see if this story can get your attention. And so Ruth's loyalty is is a reminder not only of like the loyalty that the people of Israel were supposed to have to their God, and the loyalty that we ought to show to our God, but it's also her loyalty is she really didn't have much to gain. It was a loyalty out of faith. And we talked about how, like, when you work for someone, you might be loyal to the place you work because you're getting a paycheck. That's not what's going on with Ruth. She's loyal because she is trusting that the God she finds in Israel is going to be a God worth serving and a people worth being a part of. Um, and so that's Ruth chapter 1 on loyalty. And next week, we're going to be talking Ruth chapter 2 about providence. So, yeah, we're looking forward to that. We will see you guys Sunday. Love you guys. Stay well, and we'll see you soon. Take care.